The baby was dry. He wasn't crying, he didn't have a fever, and the monitor showed him sleeping peacefully. By every human standard, everything was perfect. But our dog was losing his mind. He wasn't just barking, he was trying to break down the nursery door. We almost yelled at him to stop, thinking he'd wake the baby, but then I noticed something that chilled me to the bone. The dog wasn't just panicked, he was gagging. He could smell the change in the air that happens when a human stops breathing. He knew that while the safe light on our monitor was green, our son was seconds away from slipping into a silence he would never wake up from. If you've ever dismissed a warning because everything looked normal, stay with me. And if a dog has ever panicked when you couldn't see why, tell me in the comments. This is why people subscribe here. I'll recount this carefully, exactly as it happened. It was the middle of the night, the quiet hour when nothing is supposed to go wrong. The baby had been changed less than an hour earlier. Clean diaper, dry clothes, no crying, no fever, everything checked out. The family dog had been asleep near the couch, curled into himself the way he always did once the house settled. He was calm, predictable, reliable. Until he wasn't. He lifted his head suddenly and sniffed the air once. Then he stood, not slowly, not confused, urgently. He paced in tight circles near the hallway, whining softly at first, then louder. His tail tucked, ears pinned back, body tense like he was trying to decide which emergency to respond to first. "What's wrong with you?" the father whispered. The dog ignored him and ran to the nursery door, barking once, sharp, insistent, then pawed at it hard enough to rattle the frame. The mother sat up in bed, irritated more than concerned. "He's fine," she said. "The baby's dry. I just checked earlier." The dog barked again, louder. He scratched at the door and then turned back toward them, eyes wide, breathing fast, panic spilling out of him in every movement. He wasn't reacting to the baby crying. The baby wasn't crying at all, and that's what made this different. The dog slammed his shoulder into the nursery door. Once, twice. The sound cut through the house sharper than any cry could have. "Stop it," the father whispered harshly, already swinging his legs off the bed. "You'll wake him." The dog barked again, high this time, frantic, and scratched at the door until his nails squealed against the wood. He backed up, lunged again, and rammed it with his chest. The mother sighed and rubbed her eyes. He probably heard something outside. The dog turned on her. Not aggressive, desperate. He whined, a broken, panicked sound, and then ran back to the nursery door, pawing wildly. The father's irritation flickered into unease. "That's not normal." The dog barked again and shoved his nose under the door, inhaling hard. Then he gagged. The father froze. "What did you smell?" The dog sneezed violently and staggered back a step, then surged forward again, barking louder now, pacing, circling, whining all at once. The mother stood. Okay, I'm going." She reached the door first and twisted the handle. The room was dark and still, too still. The nightlight cast a soft glow over the crib. The baby lay on his back, arms loose at his sides, face peaceful. "See," the mother whispered. "He's fine." The dog barreled past her. He leapt up, planting his front paws on the crib rail, and shoved his nose toward the baby's face. He sniffed hard, once, twice, then barked sharply and nudged the baby's chest with his muzzle. The father's stomach dropped. "Why isn't he moving?" The mother leaned over the crib. "He's sleeping." The dog barked again, louder, and pawed at the baby's blanket, clawing it back. The baby didn't stir. The father stepped forward and placed his hand on the baby's chest. It wasn't rising. "Oh God," the mother whispered. The dog barked again, piercing now, and nudged the baby's shoulder harder, then turned and barked directly at the parents. "Now, nah." The father scooped the baby up. "Call," he said, voice already shaking. "Call now." The dog paced tight circles around them, whining and barking every time the baby's head lolled or the father hesitated. The mother fumbled for her phone, hands slick with panic. "He's dry. He's not choking. Why isn't he?" The father tilted the baby's head back slightly, just like he'd been shown at the hospital. He rubbed the baby's chest with his knuckles. Nothing. The dog barked again, sharp, commanding, and pawed the father's leg. The baby's lips had started to turn faintly blue. No, 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 the father whispered. The dog barked again and then did something neither of them had ever seen. He grabbed the edge of the baby's blanket in his teeth and tugged, hard, pulling it completely away. The baby's body jerked slightly with the movement. The father rubbed the baby's back more firmly now, adrenaline flooding his arms. Come on. The dog barked again, one last desperate sound, and shoved his nose under the baby's chin. The baby gasped, just a little, then coughed, then screamed. The sound exploded into the room, raw and furious and alive. The mother collapsed against the crib, sobbing. He's breathing. He's breathing. The father pressed the baby to his chest, shaking so hard he had to sit down. You saved him, he whispered to the dog. You saved him. The dog stood panting, eyes locked on the baby, tail tucked tight, body vibrating with leftover panic. The mother wiped her face and looked down at the diaper. It's dry, she whispered again, disbelief creeping into her voice. The father nodded slowly. It was never about that. The dog finally sat, but he didn't relax. He stayed close, watching. Because whatever had just almost taken their child hadn't announced itself with a cry or a mess or anything obvious at all. It had hidden behind normal. The baby's cry should have ended it. That's how it usually works. Sound returns, panic drains away, the night resets itself. But the dog didn't settle. He stood beside the crib, chest rising fast, eyes tracking every breath the baby took. Each inhale made his ears twitch. Each exhale seemed to release him by a fraction, but never fully. The mother sat on the floor with her back against the crib, arms wrapped around her knees. He's breathing, she said, as if saying it out loud might keep it true. He's okay now. The dog looked at her, then back at the baby. Then he barked once, short, insistent. The father frowned. What is it now? The dog paced, 3 steps left, 3 steps right, then returned to the crib and sniffed the baby's face again. He sneezed, shook his head, and barked again. The father felt his pulse jump. That's twice. The baby coughed lightly and shifted. The dog stepped back and sat. 10 seconds passed. Then the boog stood again. The mother's voice shook. He's doing it again. The dog barked once, sharper than before, and nudged the father's leg. The father leaned over the baby and watched. The baby's chest slowed, not stopped, just slower than it should be. The father adjusted the baby's position, lifting his head slightly, rubbing his back. The dog hovered inches away, nose twitching. The baby breathed normally again. The dog sat. Pattern. Oh my God, the mother whispered. He's catching it before we do. They didn't leave the nursery. They didn't argue. They stayed right there, eyes burning from lack of sleep, following the dog's lead as the night stretched on. Every time the baby's breathing faltered, even slightly, the dog moved first. Sometimes it was a bark, sometimes a nudge. Once he pawed the crib rail hard enough to make the baby stir on his own. Each time the parents reacted. Each time the breathing corrected. By the third alert, the father's hands were shaking. We're calling, he said. I don't care if it sounds crazy. The mother nodded, already dialing. The dog barked again while the phone rang. Louder this time, urgency spilling out of him like he was afraid time was thinning. The operator answered. Instructions came fast. Calm voices layered over chaos. The baby's breathing slowed again. The dog barked again. The father adjusted position. Rubbed the baby's back. Counted out loud like the operator told him to. The baby gasped and cried. Alive. The dog finally lay down, but only for a moment. Sirens cut through the night soon after. Red lights painted the walls. Boots thudded across the floor. The dog stiffened but didn't retreat. He stayed close to the crib, placing himself between the baby and the strangers until the parents spoke. He's a family dog, the mother said quickly. He alerted us. One of the paramedics glanced at the dog. Good dog. They checked vitals, fitted sensors, watched numbers instead of guessing. See that? One of them said quietly, pointing at a monitor. Those pauses. The father nodded. He was catching those. The paramedic looked down at the dog again. Before you could, the dog barked softly at the sound of the baby's breathing change, already adjusting. They moved quickly after that. Hospital lights, beeping machines, real monitors this time, ones that tracked breath instead of guessing it from movement. The dog rode with them, pressed tight against the mother's leg, eyes never leaving the baby's face. Even in the emergency room, he alerted once more. The nurse looked at the numbers and stiffened. He's right. The baby stabilized again. Later, hours later, the doctor stood with his hands folded and spoke carefully. This wasn't about diapers or temperature or comfort. The mother's voice cracked. Then what was it? Breathing pauses, the doctor said. They can be silent, invisible. The father looked at the dog. He heard it. The doctor nodded. He felt it. The dog finally lay down, not sleeping, just waiting, because the danger hadn't screamed. It had whispered. And the only one who listened was the day who panicked when the baby was dry. Morning came slowly, like it was afraid to disturb the room. Hospital light filtered through half-open blinds. The baby slept under a thin blanket, chest rising and falling in a rhythm that now had 3 adults watching it. The mother, the father, and the dog. The dog hadn't moved from his spot near the crib, not to drink, not to stretch, just repositioning slightly every time the baby shifted, recalibrating distance like a living sensor. He hasn't slept, the mother whispered. The father nodded. Neither have we. A nurse entered quietly, checked the monitors, and glanced down at the dog. He's very focused. The dog lifted his head. The nurse smiled faintly. You're doing a good job. The dog didn't react. He wasn't working for praise. The doctor returned later with results. We think it's a form of silent apnea, he said carefully. There are no obvious signs, no color change at first, no crying, no mess. The mother swallowed. So if he hadn't, the doctor didn't let her finish. You wouldn't have known. Not right away. The father looked at the dog. He knew. The doctor nodded. Dogs can detect subtle changes, carbon dioxide levels, breath patterns, muscle tone, things machines infer, things humans miss. The mother pressed her hand to her chest, but he panicked. Yes, the doctor said gently, because this wasn't a discomfort. It was a countdown. The dog stood suddenly and stepped closer to the crib. The nurse glanced at the screen. Breathing slowing. The father adjusted the baby's position immediately. The numbers corrected. The nurse looked down at the dog again, eyebrows raised. He's faster than the monitor. The mother's eyes filled. He panicked because there was no other way to tell us. The dog sat back down. Later, in a quiet moment when the room emptied, the father knelt beside the dog. You weren't reacting to a problem, he said softly. You were trying to stop one. The dog leaned into his knee. That afternoon, a technician arrived to review the baby monitor they'd brought from home. He plugged it in, scrolled through logs, frowned. It never registered a fault, he said. No alerts, no drops. The mother's voice was flat, because it was watching movement. Yes, the technician said. If the baby doesn't move, it assumes sleep. The dog growled softly at the device. The father looked at it, then away. So when he stopped breathing, the picture stayed perfect. The technician finished. Silence filled the room. The mother closed her eyes. We were reassured. The dog exhaled through his nose. That night, they stayed another night for observation. The dog stayed too. Twice, he alerted before the monitor changed. Twice, the parents intervened. Twice, the crisis passed quietly. By morning, the episode slowed. By the second morning, they stopped. The doctor smiled carefully. He's stabilizing. The mother didn't relax, not yet. She looked at the dog. You'll tell us if it happens again. The part met her eyes, promise. If you're still here, it's because you've learned that panic isn't always wrong. Sometimes it's early. If a dog has ever reacted before you understood why, tell me in the comments. And subscribe, because what comes next is where trust finally settles. They stopped watching the baby the way they used to, not because they cared less, but because they finally understood where the real warning would come from. The hospital room felt smaller on the second night. Familiar. Predictable. Machines hummed softly, lights dimmed, staff moved with practiced calm. The baby slept under thin blankets, chest rising and falling in a steady rhythm that looked ordinary again. The dog lay on the floor beside the crib, facing it, not asleep. The mother noticed it first. She hadn't looked at the monitor in over an hour. Her eyes kept drifting instead to the dog's ears, his posture, the angle of his head. "He's not panicking anymore," she whispered. The father nodded. "He's listening." They learned the difference that night. When the baby shifted in his sleep, the dog didn't move. When the baby sighed, the body stayed still. When the baby's breathing slowed, just slightly, the dog stood. The mother's heart jumped. "What is it?" The baby stepped closer to the crib and sniffed once. The father adjusted the baby's position immediately. The breathing normalized. The dog sat. The mother covered her mouth with her hand, tears pooling. "He didn't bark." "No," the father said softly. "He didn't need to." From that moment on, everything narrowed. One dog, one baby, one rhythm. The parents slept in shifts, but the beast never fully rested. He changed positions as the night went on, recalculating distance, recentering himself every time the baby's posture changed. At one point, near dawn, the baby slept so still the mother felt fear creep in again. She leaned forward. The dog stood, her breath caught. "What is it?" The dog didn't bark. He simply placed his nose near the baby's mouth. Warm air brushed his whiskers. The dog lay back down. The mother sank into the chair, exhausted and relieved all at once. "You don't scare us anymore," she whispered. "You guide us." The dog rested his chin on the floor. By the time they were discharged, the parents didn't ask about monitors or alarms. They asked one question instead. "What should we watch for?" The doctor glanced at the dog and smiled faintly. "Watch him." At home, the nursery felt different. The wall where the crib camera had once been mounted was empty. No screen, no false reassurance, just quiet, in a dog-shaped presence anchoring the room. The first night back, the baby slept peacefully. The dog lay beside the crib. The parents slept on the floor nearby, arms brushing the carpet, listening to breath, not through speakers or sensors, but through space. Hours passed, then the dog stood. The mother's eyes snapped open instantly. "What is it?" The dog nudged her knee, firm, not frantic. She leaned forward and placed her hand on the baby's chest. It rose. She adjusted him slightly. The breathing deepened. The boy lay back down. No panic, no crisis, just correction. The mother pressed her forehead to the floor and cried quietly, not from fear this time, but from relief so deep it hurt. "You panicked when we couldn't," she whispered. "You panicked so we wouldn't have to." The father rested a hand on the dog's back. "You didn't care that everything looked fine." The dog shifted closer to the crib. "You cared that it wasn't." The panic that had once annoyed them now made sense. It wasn't noise. It was urgency without language. And it had saved their child. The real test came 3 nights later. Not in the hospital, not under bright lights or backup staff. At home, the house was finally quiet again, the kind of quiet that used to feel safe. The baby slept in his crib, chest rising and falling steadily. The parents lay on the floor nearby, exhausted in a way only fear can cause. The dog lay beside the crib, facing it, still. Midway through the night, the father drifted into a shallow sleep. The mother's eyes closed for just a moment longer than she meant to allow. That's when the dog stood. Not suddenly, not in panic, deliberately. The mother felt it before she heard it. The shift of weight, the soft scrape of paws on the floor. Her eyes snapped open. The dog was already at the crib, nose hovering, stillness. "No," she whispered. The dog didn't bark. He nudged her knee once, hard. The father was awake instantly. "What?" The dog barked once, sharp, commanding. The mother rushed forward and placed her hand on the baby's chest. Nothing. Her breath caught. "He's not." The father lifted the baby smoothly, hands steady despite the terror climbing his spine. He tilted the baby's head, adjusted position, rubbed firmly between the shoulders. The dog circled once, tight, focused, then stopped. Waiting, seconds stretched thin, Then, air. A gasp, a cry. Life rushed back into the room like oxygen after a fire. The mother collapsed to her knees, sobbing, "Thank you, thank you." The father pressed his forehead to the baby's head, shaking. "You saved him," he whispered to the dog. Again, the dog sat, panting lightly, eyes never leaving the baby. They didn't call an ambulance this time. They didn't need to. They stayed awake until dawn, watching breath, watching the dog, trusting what had already proven itself more than once. By morning, the episode stopped completely. The doctor later explained it would likely never happen again, that the window had passed, that some babies simply needed time. But the parents knew something else. Time hadn't saved their child. Listening had. Weeks passed. The house returned to normal sounds. Laundry, soft music, quiet laughter. The baby grew stronger. His breathing deepened. His cries came when he needed something and stopped when he didn't. The dog changed too. He slept more now, relaxed. But he always positioned himself so he could see the crib. Always. One afternoon, a visiting friend asked, "Why don't you use a monitor anymore?" The mother smiled faintly. "We already have one." The friend laughed until she saw the dog. Years later, when the baby learned to crawl, then walk, then run, the dog followed close behind, not hovering, not anxious, watching. Because panic had never been his default. Protection was. And sometimes protection doesn't wait for proof. It reacts to absence, to silence, to the moment before something terrible becomes visible. If this story stayed with you, if it reminded you that panic isn't always wrong, subscribe so these warnings don't get ignored. And tell me in the comments, would you have listened when the baby was dry? Everything looked normal, but the dog panicked because the breath was already gone.